r/AskReddit. What's the worst case of rich kid syndrome you've seen? I worked as a bouncer at a high-end nightclub. The biggest boner of a rich kid, straight out of Malibu's Most Wanted, gets a VIP booth and bottle service. Racks up a massive bill trying to act like a baller. His credit card gets denied and he has to call his dad to come down at 1:30 a.m. because he can't order any more bottles. His dad comes down in his pajamas, obviously ashamed and furious at this douche of a kid. Ends up embarrassing the shit out of his kid in front of his whole group of friends. He takes the kid's keys and is about to leave when his kid makes some shitty comment and goes back in the club. The dad's about to walk away after he apologizes for his son. When we offer to drag him out the rough way, he smiles and accepts. That kid hit every door and step on the way out. Not the best story, but was one of the most satisfying experiences working at that club. Do know if it qualifies as rich kid syndrome, but when I got out of the Navy I decided to use my D-bill at one of the Penn State satellites. I was sitting in the cafeteria drinking coffee and typing up a paper when a girl sits down across from me and opens her backpack. She pulls out a sandwich bag and looks at it in disgust, then looks me dead in the eye and says, "I don't even know why I bother, my mother never cuts off the crust." I let out one of those high-pitched short laughs like, is this girl for real? Oblivious to the tone of it, she says, "I know, right?" then asks me if I want it. I looked around thinking I was getting pranked or something, cause this shit is too stereotypical to be real, and I just assumed I was being filmed. She shook it at me and gave me a, well, look. So I said fuck it and took the sandwich. She then pulled out her student ID card and bought a crap ton of French fries. That sandwich was awesome. I think the bread was homemade and it was stacked like a dagwood. It had all kinds of expensive looking meats and Dijon mustard. Serious gourmet shit. I know this girl's mother will never see this, but I just wanna say someone appreciated that sandwich. I've posted this before, and I need to say first off the bat that this is about my best friend, and she is the best person I know. That is not normally rich kid or anything. I was complaining about how I was short on money one month, just couldn't go out to eat because I had to pay rent and pay for tag renewal all in the same paycheck. She looked at me, super seriously, and was like, "Don't worry, they send you those in the mail for free." After a long discussion, she learned that in fact, her mom had been paying for her new tags every year. This case isn't too bad, and it's a bit funny. I became friends with a kid whose family was really well off. He was a really nice bloke, but a bit sheltered, and university was the first time he really had any independence, but he had very little sense of what the value of a dollar really was, since his folks got him what he usually wanted, compared to what normal people would spend. There was one particular time he wanted us to eat at a restaurant, and he assured us it's really good. So we all rocked up to this place, and the price for main courses started at $40 to $60, which as poor uni students we couldn't afford, but when he realized this he was so embarrassed he got his folks to pay for it. He's finally wised up a few years later once he got more independence away from his family and made his own money, and remains one of the best blokes I know. A 12-year-old family friend got an iPhone XS for his birthday, then deliberately shattered his iPhone 8. I saw a 7-year-old daughter having iPhone XS with the ostrich skin cover. The cover was more expensive than the phone. Mommy got it for her birthday. In high school, a kid was bragging that he got in his third fender bender in his old car, 3 years old, that his parents gave him but he hated, so his parents were buying him an entirely new, current year, car to incentivize him to drive better. Worked with this kid who was a good kid, but completely disconnected from financial reality for most people. He'd just moved out west from another state and was trying to get on like a normal adult. He went to buy a new car and was shocked that they couldn't just bill his dad for it, since they didn't know him. He ordered a bottle of wine at a restaurant and the sommelier said, "Certainly, sir." Then the sommelier whispered, "Just for your knowledge, sir, the bottle is $700. He looked straight at him and asked, "Is that a lot?" The sommelier honestly didn't know how to answer. Good kid, and he got a lot better, but he just didn't know. Once he casually told his mom he needed some help with bills, and she deposited $20,000 into his account. A guy looked at my $2,000 beater car in college and commented that it must have been really cheap and guessed $15,000. For anyone curious, it was a Curio 2005 with 120k miles on it. I worked at a Starbucks and we hired a new guy, who I was training. At one point, I had to show him how to clean the restrooms. I grab the bleach and hand him a pair of gloves, and he looks at me in disgust and says, "We don't have a maid to clean the bathrooms." He quit the next day, laugh out loud. When I was in boarding school, one of my co-boarders handed me some mail saying, "Do you notice anything special about this envelope?" When I checked it out, I realized his face was on the stamp. He was royalty. Idiot. I will add another too. Kid from Taiwan also attending same boarding school. My advent calendar had little chocolates. He's had a remote control car, Sega Game Gear, etc. etc. Another teenager, 16, arguing on the phone to his grandfather he didn't want a Porsche, he wanted the Ferrari. Went to a destination wedding in Mexico resort. Rich kids rented a golf cart, tore through the streets and flipped the cart, injuring people and causing a huge commotion and traffic jam. A Mexican lady comes out and begins to scold them for their behavior. "You wouldn't act this way at home." A rich kid responds, "I promise you we do." It was the earnestness of his reply that got me. Idiot. He really believed he was placating her with that response. There's gotta be a German word for something being funny because the other party is aloof to their own behavior. My brother works at a rehab center for the kids of wealthy parents. He's always got stories, but the one that sticks with me the most was a kid who was in trouble with the law and doing rehab before his court appearances. You know, to look like a better person, and hopefully the judge would go easier on him. He was moppy one day, and my brother asks him what's wrong. The kid starts talking about how tough the whole experience has been for him, how it's been so hard on his family that his parents had to sell his house to pay for his rehab. My brother felt sympathetic and says, "Damn, it sucks that your parents had to sell their house over this." To which the kid corrected him, "No, they kept their house. They had to sell mine." I knew a girl whose allowance was $90 a day. She got into trouble, so they cut it to $90 a week. One girl from my high school got breast implants for her 18th birthday. Her mom joined her as a mother/daughter bonding activity, followed by the daughter getting a brand new $90,000 Mercedes as a high school graduation gift. I think I saw that movie. And then the daughter's boyfriend comes over, right? I work for a dentist and her son is a spoiled brat. He was at the office one day because she had to bring him to an appointment later that day. He got bored and went out wandering around some of the local shops. He came back a little while later and without any preamble walked up to her and said, "Give me $80. She asked him what it was for and he just repeated himself and she gave it to him. Idiot. Did not expect this to blow up. I'll answer a few questions if I can. So the kid is 19 years old. He was 17 at the time of this incident. The father is in the picture, but my boss, the dentist, is the main breadwinner and disciplinarian of the family. The husband is more like another child and just works here and there and lives off her money. She tries to act tough and instill certain morals and values in her kids, but then turns around and caves to all of their demands. For example, her twin daughters are going to university next year, and instead of staying in a dorm they demanded a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. They refused to share a bedroom or even a bathroom. At first she told them absolutely not, but they whined and complained and she caved. This will be a 2-bed, 2-bath apartment in Toronto, by the way, where rent prices are through the roof. My boss is very much about appearances and from a young age got her kids accustomed to a privileged lifestyle. She created monsters. Edda too, yes, they're totally like Jean Ralphio and Mona Lisa Saperstein. Went to HS with this insufferably spoiled kid. Family had a couch in their home's elevator. And classical European sculpture, this was in the US. Kid talked down to Slash about the less fortunate on a regular basis. Once made fun of me for picking a coin up off the ground. A friend of mine inherited a lot of money, enough to buy a house, and he spent it on 2 cars. A Subaru completely modded to Ken Block's version of it and some BMW, both extremely expensive. We asked him a few months later why he didn't buy a house with it because he still lived with his parents. So he told us that he already owned a penthouse, he just didn't want to move yet. I could absolutely survive on my own. My parents just pay for my food and house, but I pay for everything else. If I got a job I could pay for my food and house too. Said at 18, in the middle of a discussion between 2 middle-class peers who were talking about saving money because they had to pay for their own college and living expenses. About 5 minutes prior to this conversation, both peers had ordered the cheap dinner options and declined a shopping trip later that night. while rich girl was talking non-stop about buying the best/most expensive souvenirs for her friends. Once tried working a regular person retail job and quit within a couple weeks as it just wasn't right and I didn't like it. Reed had actual responsibilities for the first time. Moved cross-country for an 8-month education course, where her parents pay food, rent, and school. They also gave her a debit card, which replenishes up to $500 when it hits $50. She still posts Snapchats with captions of "that broke person life" over pictures of her getting Starbucks every day, and insists she could survive all on her own. Constantly suggests the most expensive options for meals, activities, etc., and tacks on things like, "We can just split the bill, I know you were saving but it's just amount at least $50, you'll be fine right?" Then gets upset when people can't afford to spend time with her, or when someone dares to suggest that she helps cover costs. Thanks for listening and getting this far. I hope you all enjoyed, and remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed.